All right, the regular meeting of the Calaveras County Planning Commission is called to order, and we will start with the swearing in of our new commissioner, Corey Fisk.
I was waiting for the flag salute. Raise your right hand and please repeat after me. I, Corey Fisk, do solemnly swear
I, Corey Fisk, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without mental reservation
that I take this obligation freely without mental obligation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties that I'm about to enter.
Is that it?
Thank
And then our next item, one that's been waiting for a while now, is selection of the chair and vice chair.
Do the pledge for.
No, it's next, after,
Oh,
Oh, really?
on the agenda.
Okay.
The first thing we do when we started meeting was do the pledge and then
I'm just following the agenda, folks.
Well, with the understanding that there won't be an objection to this, I would like to nominate our current vice chair to be elevated to the position of chair.
Oh, yeah. Dang. That was tricky.
Next.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think that's why no one's here today.
That usually means.
Yes, so we need a vice chair. And because I don't believe in suggesting someone who isn't here to defend themselves, I would suggest that Commissioner Laddish serve as vice chair for the remainder of this year.
I accept the nomination.
Okay?
And I will second it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Passes 3-0 with 2 absent commissioners. Okay, now let's have that Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any staff announcements? And any agenda changes? I'm assuming no. Do we have anybody online? Well, so this is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on an item of interest to the commission that is not on the agenda today. Seeing no audience and no one online, we're going to open and close that item. Move on to the consent agenda, which also has no items. So we will get to our regular agenda, item 2022-018, conditional use permit and plan development permit for J and Pamela Del Secco. And Catherine, you're going to lead us.
Okay, good morning. My name is Catherine Stephanie. I'm a Planner 1 with the county, and I will be presenting project 2022-018 today. The applicants, Jay and Pamela Del Secco, are requesting a conditional use permit and plan development permit to construct a 140 square foot bathroom addition to the rear of an existing residence located at 1190 Sequoia Street in Arnold, APN 026-027-025 is a 0.28 acre parcel, Zone C2 PD, which is general commercial with a plan development combining district, is designated by the general plan as having a community center land use designation, and is located within the Arnold White Pines Community Plan area. Calaveras County Code Section 17.36.030 allows one single-family residence per legal parcel not subservient to a permitted principal use such as a commercial business with a CUP. However, the existing residence and garage were constructed in 1950 before the implementation of the Calaveras County zoning code. There's no record of a conversion from a residential structure to a commercial structure and no record of business licenses at this address, and therefore the residence is considered a legally existing non-conforming use and structure. Section 17.04.010.c and 17.92.020 of County Code require that the enlargement of a non-conforming use or structure must obtain approval of a CUP before it can be done. The purpose of a CUP is to provide the general public with an opportunity to review a proposed land use that is generally consistent with the purpose of a base zone district, but has the potential to cause conflicts with the neighboring land use and zoning. The plan development combining zone requires a permit for any construction on a parcel that has an effect on aesthetics. The purpose of the plan development process is to regulate site development and aesthetics, not the type of use. The proposed addition is compatible with the community center land use designation, which is intended to serve the residents of and visitors to the community and the surrounding areas. The proposed addition would be constructed to the rear of an existing residence surrounded by other residences and located within a block of a main commercial area in Arnold. There are no adopted policies for the Arnold White Pine community area so those don't apply here. The surrounding zoning and land use consists of primarily single-family residents in the immediate vicinity and local commercial businesses a little further out. The project complies with all applicable plan development performance standards. The expansion of the residence will be constructed in a manner that's compatible with the existing structures on the parcel as required by the conditions of Resolution 2022-007. The project is residential in nature, and improvements such as refuse storage, screening, signs, and mechanical and rooftop devices aren't applicable to this project. Public Works had no comment on the application, and staff therefore presumes the existing access is safe and adequate. The residence has a detached garage and sufficient driveway area to satisfy parking requirements for a single-family home. And the residence has existing landscaping and natural vegetation and is not being required for this project, as historically residential use plan development permits have not had that 10% landscaping requirement applied to them. The application was circulated to various county departments and local public agencies for 30 days. Responses were received from Public Works, the Building Department, Environmental Health, and the On-Site Wastewater Department. The On-Site Wastewater Department was the only department that commented, and their comment was regarding whether or not there was a septic system on the property and connecting to CCWD services. That comment was put into the resolution, but I found it a little unclear, and so I spoke with them, and they revised the comment and sent a letter stating no comment, but that was received after the packets went out. A notice of exemption under Section 15301E of the California Environmental Quality Act has been prepared and will be submitted for filing upon final approval of the permit. In conclusion, the project as proposed conforms to applicable goals and policies of the county general plan, including implementation measure LU-1.2, which supports growth in and around existing communities while protecting and enhancing community and neighborhood character. The permitting process allows for the addition to be constructed while giving the opportunity to mitigate impacts to neighbors through permit conditions. The project is found to be compatible with the surrounding land uses and zoning in the general vicinity, and also found to have adequate land area to accommodate the proposed use, and was found to have safe and adequate access with no site improvements required.
Are there any questions for Catherine?
Well, I have a question on the wastewater. Then is condition 3-1 of the resolution, is that changed then?
Yes, that will, I suggest we remove that, as we've got a revised letter from them now stating no comment.
Okay, and just as a general question for you or anybody else, is, when they talk about on-site wastewater disposal systems, we've been talking about gray water systems. Is that considered a wastewater disposal system?
I'm not sure. That would likely be a question for the
Somebody's shaking
environmental.
her head next to you.
They're actually, those would be two different things. So the wastewater system would, in a sense, take all the sewer. What they're talking about with the gray water system is diverting sinks and possibly showers, I'm not sure, but that would be environmental management. But the gray water system would be the diversion of that gray water, separating it from what would be considered the black water, which would normally go into the septic system.
Yeah, I just suggest that in the future, if we have this issue, that be made clear, because to me, gray water is wastewater.
Well, unless they have a separate gray water system, then yes, the gray water goes into the wastewater system.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyhow, it's all moot for this morning.
So it sounds like the applicant marked that they had an on-site wastewater system, because they may not have understood that only apply, that means a septic system, not that they have some kind of waste system. So they may not have understood, and kind of created this confusion.
Yeah, it's new
They're not here.
terminology.
Yeah.
So
To us,
we no
it's
longer
normal.
call them septic systems.
Yeah.
They now refer to them as wastewater systems.
Right,
Yeah.
but we know that, but the applicant wouldn't necessarily
Right.
know that.
No.
They don't keep up with
No.
the current state.
Would this be time to raise the questions about the resolution? About some of the.
I would say,
Wait.
let's go through our little our checklist here. Is the applicant online by any chance? So the applicant is not here, so they won't be able to make any comments. And because there is no one online and no one in the audience, we'll open and close the public comment portion of the hearing. And now we can talk about the resolution.
In paragraph 2 in the evidence, at the very end, it correctly points out Arnold White Pines community area does not have adopted community plan policies. Up in the first sentence of that evidence, I think we just need to eliminate the word plan from Arnold White Pines community plan area and capitalize A, area.
Okay.
Then, since we're now in our all-knowing state, our establishing what the evidence is, I think we, in both the evidence for number 3 and the evidence for number 6, we need to eliminate "so staff presumes" toward the end. So we just say the lack of comment implies that. Same thing on 6.
Okay.
And then I would suggest on the evidence for number 4, we just since we're talking about adequate and land area, et cetera, that we add a sentence at the end of evidence saying all setback requirements are satisfied. Which it looks as if from the schematics, they are. And finally, on evidence for paragraph 7, says this permit is conditioned to ensure that applicable permitting is in place for the construction of a bathroom addition, et cetera. Is this a reference to condition 1-4?
Let me read this really quick. Yes.
Okay.
The 1-3 and 1-4 requiring the
Oh.
building permit and then requiring
Yeah, okay.
that it falls.
Great. And then, and this is something I've been confused with since junior high school. In 1-4, it seems to me we should say toward the end whether or not such requirements are specified.
Okay.
I'm glad you agree. We're quite sure. And that's it.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments? Because I have a few to run through really quick.
Good.
I just want to, okay. So 1-3, it says they must obtain a build permit. I'll be changing build to building permit. 1-4, it's a numeric one, not a Roman numeral one, so I'll be changing that. As I said, I'm removing the on-site wastewater comment, as they've sent a revised comment saying no comment. And then 2-3, I will be removing the beginning portion to state, so instead of saying building elevations for the bathroom addition shall be designed, it'll say the bathroom addition shall be designed.
That sounds good.
Nice refining. Thank you.
And those are all the changes I have.
Okay.
And I'd ask County Council, you raised some comments in here about the staff's approach to the,
When you say here, are you referring to an attorney-client memo?
no, certainly not.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. Are you satisfied with the legality of the resolution as it's presented?
Let me take a look at where that, I know there was one part in the staff report, and I think it came to the resolution, where there was some language about existing residence with existing landscaping.
Yes.
And I think that should be changed to reflect the reality of why this is being done without the landscaping requirements, et cetera, which is based on the fact that the interpretation of the ordinance has long been that these additional rules don't apply in the circumstance where there's a residential application for a planned development permit. It's rare for there to be a residential application for a planned development permit. Usually that results, I think, from non-conforming residential uses in that overlay, so we don't see this very often. So I'm trying to find, again, where...
It's in the discussion, I don't think it's in the resolution,
Oh,
where
okay.
they talk
I didn't
about
find it in the
the
resolution.
landscape. And she mentioned it when your comment saying that, because it is a residence, we have traditionally treated them in this different manner.
I have to scan.
So the evidence for number 3 there's about in the middle, there is a sentence about the landscaping, but if it would satisfy Julie, I can add a note about how, as Michelle said and I said, historically, it hasn't been applied to residential uses.
But beyond the historic kind of nature of the whole thing as well. It's also policy. So if you look at all of the zone districts permitting single-family residences, there is no site development or performance standard that requires landscaping for a single-family residence. So it's a little awkward that you would apply landscaping requirement as great as 10% to a residence that otherwise would not be applied, just because of the zone district.
Right, it is awkward. So I
Right.
think, I don't know that it's going to matter in this case, because I don't think anybody's opposed to this, so I'm not losing a lot of sleep over it. I just, conceptually, regardless of how we feel about the existing plan development ordinance, it's still there. And so if you have an ordinance that says, thou shalt apply these standards to everything in the PD zone, doesn't exempt residences, the reason why it would be legal to not listen to it is because an interpretation of that code from the county has historically been that it was assumed to apply only to commercial structures. And so that explains why it would be legal to do that, even though it says thou shalt apply them to all standards. The county has a lot of latitude when it comes to applying its own ordinances and interpreting its own ordinances.
Well, since that statement about landscaping is in evidence, this evidence is becoming, irrelevant, isn't it? We just eliminate that sentence about the additional landscaping is not being required?
Additional landscaping isn't being required, I think.
No, I know, but I mean, it's because,
So my recommendation would be, instead of saying additional landscaping is not being required as this is an existing residence that has existing landscaping, would be to get rid of as this is an existing residence that has existing landscaping, and just have it say additional landscaping is not being required as this section of the plan development ordinance has not historically been applied to residential uses. Does that make sense? Okay.
makes sense to me.
I have a suggestion in the future that we list the criteria for plan development and then say yay or nay, why there's a condition or not associated with it, or in the case of a residence, that none of those things are applicable because the county has a policy, historically has applied a different criteria to it. Hopefully, PD is going away, and this one is an extraordinarily awkward one because it's a parcel that existed as a residential parcel prior to the zoning code. So somebody chose to give this a zone that was not in conformance with its actual use. Not any of us here. Maybe me, I might have been around at that time, but I'm a dinosaur. But yeah, it's just really awkward. It just reminds us how much we dislike this piece of our zoning code.
Yeah, and then, but because they're in a mismatched zone, they're in that situation where they're expanding a non-conforming use.
Yes.
Which would require a CUP regardless.
But somebody created that
Yeah.
non-conforming
Yeah.
use, so, anyway. Do we have a motion on this item?
I would move that we adopt the resolution and with all of its appropriate amendments.
So I will second the motion and compliment you on the package that you put together in your presentation today. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So it passes 3-0-2. And you'll let those folks know, and there's 35 days if anyone was to have an objection, but they...
15.
It's 15.
So this is a
15.
final action by the Planning Commission, and unless appealed to the Board of Supervisors within 15 calendar days.
So 35 days on the CEQA portion.
CEQA exemptions, it's a 35 days.
Right, there you go. All right. So I think we are on to reports already. Oh, we have no informational items? Do we have any commissioner reports?
Well, I'd certainly like to welcome Corey Fisk, our quorum maker for today.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to have you join us, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Do you have a report on your first day?
I do not, and have not had an opportunity to meet with my supervisors since the nomination, but I will make sure that I have something for you at the next meeting.
Perhaps, Corey, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
In order to extend the length of this meeting, I would be more than happy to let you know. I am 18 years construction management technology professor at Cosumnes River Community College. I'm the head of the department there. I have a Class A general engineering contractor license where I do construction management here in the county. I am doing curriculum development for online construction management. I have a home here in the community with my wonderful husband and 2 boys, and I barrel race as a hobby, along with painting and writing.
Thank you. And, Director, do we have a report?
In the spirit of extending the meeting, I do. Madam Chair, congratulations. Commissioner Laddish, congratulations to you, too. I'm not going to speak slowly, but, so, I emailed to you some GHG items, and I wanted to know if you had any feedback. But before we get there, I just want to report to you that there has been a significant development regarding the GHG policies that this particular county has or is in the process of enacting. And it has become somewhat controversial. So even though they started off with being very, very careful, trying to be more inclusive, it turned out that when they went to the next stage of the GHG reduction program, it's called a CAP, so Climate Action Plan. So the culmination of all your efforts is going to result in a document called the Climate Action Plan, where each one of your goals and policies would be included in in somewhat of a document. Now, that particular process in this particular county has turned out to be very, very controversial because the word climate in the title elicited a lot of negativity with, all kinds of items being talked about that were really not very necessary. So I had the opportunity to speak with the consultants over our process, and they wanted to kind of make sure that if we were going to produce a similar document, that perhaps using the word climate action plan might not be the most prudent thing to do, to find an alternative that describes what we're trying to do but not call it a climate action plan, because it's going to elicit negativity as if we don't have enough of that. So that's the update. Now, as far as the document I sent to you, was there anything in that document that you found to be fascinating, not a fan, liked it, don't like it?
Agenda?
I'm embarrassed to say I missed it.
Oh, you missed it.
So if you could say, which I have one question. Yeah, I have one question with the county email. At least on my list, emails disappear awfully quickly.
Oh, really?
Like
There's a 60-day retention period for
60
email.
day?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be. Right? Is there a way of extending that?
The subject says something like survey, and it was a little, I didn't open it, because I was in a hurry, and I figured I could come back to it, but I wasn't clear if it was intended for the commissioners or for the department heads, because it did say
Oh, that's a
some.
separate one.
Oh, okay, then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might not have seen
So
this either.
You should open that one, because it's a survey for its GHG process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's supposed to gather, it's the public participation aspect of this particular process, and that survey is kind of countywide. So that one you should open as a resident of the county and answer some of those questions. But
Could
this-
you resend both of those?
Yes, I will.
Please, thank
I
you.
think Julie's uncomfortable with the discussion, with it not being
Well, so
agendized.
there's nothing wrong with soliciting feedback from commissioners, but it would have to be done through an agendized, during report out, we could direct, the commission can direct staff or doing something like just maybe changing the name from climate action to something else. Something small like that it's okay during report out, but to elicit a discussion of a survey, I'm not familiar with the survey, not that I need to necessarily be, but it would need to be something, if we're discussing it, that's presented to the public.
The discussion it's not about a survey. It's not. With this discussion, it's about its GHG action plan from another community that I shared with the planning commission.
Right, so that would need to be placed on an agenda before the commission could engage in discussion about
Well,
it.
that was what I was just about to say. I've read it fully and reviewed it completely, but I think it'd be appropriate for me to discuss it right now. But if you could resend it, I will.
So if you're talking about about Tualamee's, the
Yes.
email about that, I got that. I was confused.
Right.
I thought you were talking about
No,
something
I was
about
talking about
our
Tuolumne.
plan.
So it's
Okay,
something-
so,
It doesn't even, whatever the topic is, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
just that it needs to come on an agenda, so if we're going to actually be discussing it and so sharing ideas about it. It's the Brown Act.
I should be better about checking my county email. When there isn't a meeting, I tend not to check it until right before there is a meeting. And,
to see if we have anything from Julie the day before, right?
Right, exactly.
I think I was pretty good.
You were
yeah.
good. You were good this week.
Before, okay.
Anyhow, I will be glad to review it.
Please, thank you.
So, and
Yeah.
I took it as a clarification of something that you may have sent, and I still need to discuss my email address and how I am receiving things or how that all works. But we had talked about possibly providing just an attachment report to whatever sent to us, just because I'm a note taker. I like to be able to take notes next
Sure.
to the things that
Yeah.
you're talking about. So
Yeah.
even just bullet point and just a one-page type of thing that is included, but then I don't know if possibly then a process of us understanding that, the Wednesday prior, or excuse me, the Tuesday or Monday prior to the meeting, that be submitted so that, there's like, we
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, this was submitted, this is just informational documents strictly. So we are in the process of adopting greenhouse gas emissions program. And I'm sharing with you what another county did with their program, so that you see whether or not there's anything in here that you liked. And I even described how they had shied away from some specific controversial items, and whether or not we would, consider doing something similar. So that's what all that was about. And it was been, I guess, maybe about a month, maybe ago.
Right, and they have since issued a FAQ document
Right.
explaining the process
Right.
to the public.
Right.
This is something that should be on the agenda, because I know
Yeah.
Okay,
community,
so something like that should be agenda.
community groups have already commented about Tualamee's.
Yes.
Yeah, so just
Yeah.
to clear, there's nothing wrong with sending stuff to the planning commissioners as long as they're not replying all or talking to each other about
Yeah.
it. So if it's a one-way valve, you're sending things to the planning
Right.
commissioner.
Yeah.
But to elicit discussion about it has to be on an agenda under the
Okay.
Brown Act. Yeah.
Okay.
So should we put this on our agenda for our next meeting?
Are you ready to provide any,
I'm not ready to provide any feedback
I mean,
today.
if we put it on the next agenda, are you going to be ready at that time? And did you get a copy of what I had sent?
So I did not, and I guess part of my clarification and understanding where the status of this is that Calaveras is proposing moving forward with something like this,
Right.
and you're providing a sample of what someone
Something
else has already done.
done.
And is there a timeline or an idea of when Calaveras plans on moving forward with this?
So we're already halfway through the
We're in the
process.
of
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in the
So
process
it
now
sounds like
for-
we're soliciting public comment, not just at a agendized item at a meeting, but that, I guess I need to read that email more carefully.
Okay.
See if we're sending something out to the public and asking them to respond.
Yeah, now, the survey is something totally different. Now, that survey is something that is going to the community. It's on the planning department's webpage. I sent that survey to all department heads, and I sent it to the commissioners as well. As residents of the county, this is a survey that our consultants are asking us to go through and answer. So that's something totally different from the other one, which I sent many weeks prior to that. Yeah.
Right. That same survey was sent to when they did Angels Camps.
Right, exactly. That was the same survey that was
Same
sent to
exact
Angels
survey,
Camp.
yeah.
So it's, so as residents of the community, you're entitled to that survey, whether you're on the planning commission or not.
Okay.
Right.
So,
And- Go ahead, please.
it sounds like we do need to have a discussion, though, about what the next document will be, whether it's, what kind of a plan it's going to be.
Yes.
And so we probably should discuss that when it's agendized and.
Yeah, because the next step in the work that you've put in since May or April would be a revised GHG process, which would include all the comments you have painstakingly included over the review period, and then we can talk about it. But I'm not sure if at that time would be an appropriate time to talk about what a different county has done, because the different counties' GHG program was just something for us to take a look at this, look at what they've done, and this is the results that they're getting out of what they've already done. It hasn't gotten them very far because it's still highly, highly controversial. So that is a signal of what we may encounter if we go down that way or not. I don't know.
Okay.
And some of the other items would be future items that would be coming to the Planning Commission. So I don't think it would be appropriate for me at this time to kind of talk about them. Can I just, tell them what they are, or?
Sure, I mean, yeah, a report out of things coming in the future is perfectly acceptable. Again, the issue here was really just eliciting a discussion was the issue that kind of went beyond the Brown Act.
Okay, very good. So at your next Planning Commission meeting, the public hearing would include the Whiskey Flats rezone proposal. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I don't want to go into any additional details. You'll get the staff report. At that same meeting, there are going to be two zoning code clarifications that requires the Planning Commission and not the Planning Director to make a determination of land use consistency. So one of them is in the public safety zone, where the Planning Commission has been specifically asked to make a determination whether a proposed use is consistent with the existing uses in that zoning code section. And if you find that to be the case, then you would initiate the addition of that specific land use into that section of the code. That's number one. The second one includes looking at uses that are allowed in two different commercial zoning designations. One is a C1 zoning designation, and the other one is a C2 zoning designation. And the question for the Planning Commission would be, should we allow uses in the C2 zone as conditional uses in the C1 zone if there's compatibility between what the use is in a C1 zone currently allowed by right or by CUP and what is currently allowed by right or by CUP in a C2 zone. And the reason for that is to eliminate some of the heartaches that have occurred when the county actually did recent zone changes. So when we took properties from C1 to C2, there were certain things that people in the C1 zone lost the ability to do. So if we were to bring that back as uses that could be allowed in a C2 zone, albeit by a conditional use permit, they can still continue to kind of, do those things in the C1 zone. So those are the things that will be coming up for the next planning commission. So there are 3 items, 1 public hearing item and 2 discussion items. Now, Julie, do you want those discussion items? They're going to come in the form of, how do you want us to agendize those? Are they going to, do you want it to come in the form of a staff report that actually identifies what I just talked about? Or we don't have to do a public notice for them because they will not be making a decision on one or the other. How do you want that?
Well, are these other 2 being done at the behest of an applicant, or are they just?
No, this
okay.
is a zoning code cleanup for us. And a
That came up
clarification.
because of this
Oh,
particular
okay.
project, just brought these
Yeah.
to light.
Right,
And
and
I
then
mean, if
do we
the
want to fix
informational
them?
item would, if you don't want to have to do CEQA right now,
No,
then I would agendize them as an
Under informational.
informational item.
Okay, not under discussion.
Because
So-
one of the issues, of course, is what is, that we'll have to work out at some point if we're directed to proceed, would be what kind of CEQA document we need to prepare to
Yes.
make the change.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
So with an informational item, we can still give some direction to the.
Oh, of course, you can give direction during, you're just not approving an action
We're
yet.
not-
We'd have to come
we're not
back
voting.
formally
Yeah.
with a noticed zoning amendment, if you decided to give that direction.
I have to ask if these 2 items already have proposed language in our zoning code update.
They will be included. So these are things that, we are waiting for the zoning code. I'm still on. Yeah, I couldn't see the red for me. So we are waiting for the zoning code update, but at this particular point, we have to resolve these issues because they are now, at the moment, issues. So when we do the zoning code update, then it would not be an item that would have to be updated, it would just be, it would already be there. Now, there are other zoning code issues that we would, like to see resolved, one of them being this PD thing and the CUP thing for.
I
For
just
certain
thought if there
items.
were other pieces of C1 and C2's language that have already been edited and will be proposed as part of the update, that maybe we need to make sure we don't create an additional
Yeah,
conflict.
there
down.
probably are, but they're not related to this particular, they're not related to this particular one. Yeah, in the PS and the C1s, no, they're not related. Yeah, there are other cleanup language, but not specifically these 2 things.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, I asked Gina, are we meeting then in 2 weeks?
Do we have a meeting in
August 11th.
August?
It sounds like we do. I don't have
What law school
anything
did
to
you
bring
go
to you.
Okay,
So this will be the August 11th Planning Commission meeting.
okay. Unless anybody has anything else they'd like to share, we're going to adjourn this meeting at 9:45.